we're going to get started. Thank you for coming and welcome to a celebration of National Poetry Month. My name is Mindy Sandoval. I am the Head of Public Services Librarian here at Miller Library. I wanted to begin by thanking our event sponsors. The staff here at J. Cloyd Miller in the Work Studies. Barbara Flores is our chairman of the events committee, so special thanks to her. Also the WNMU Humanities Department, Michael Acosta and the crew at Media Technology Services, as well as the Southwest Work Fiesta. And I hope you enjoyed the musings that we put up, the magnet poetry. That was done by students. And I love the idea of a found poem. I love watching the students come through and they'd pick apart, find words, and put ideas together. And I kind of looked through some of the themes that the students were expressing. So a lot of fear of the unknown, a little bit of contentiousness. Love of nature came out, and I thought that was wonderful. Love of movement, of dance, and just love of a party and a good time. So those were, I thought that was really great that students were able to express just through small statements a little bit of where they're at right now. So we welcome you to go back, write a poem of your own, and check those out for sure. The format comes from William Burroughs. It was, he put slips of words into a hat, pulled it out, and tried to make something out of it. And it kind of relates to our generation. Dave Chappelle was a rap lyricist trying to do the same thing, putting ideas and words together and coming up with new ways to find rap lyrics. And so, I think it's really cool the way that came together. It was such a fun project for us to put together here at the library. So, yeah, check that out. So, just to get us started, I wanted to introduce J.J. Wilson. He is our writer in residence here at WNMU. He has won numerous awards internationally and stateside, and his work has been translated into multiple languages. So to speak a little bit more on the importance of poetry, please welcome J.J. Wilson.
Thank you, Mindy. Hello, everybody. Just want to say a big thank you to Heather for inviting me. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to Miller Library for hosting, as always. Probably like some of you, my first encounters with poetry were the nursery rhymes that my parents read me as a child. Is that true for any of you? A few of you? They gave me a lot of delight, obviously, but also a love of language that has lasted a lifetime for me. And I've always felt since then that poetry is like music, in that you don't necessarily have to understand it, but you have to feel it. The main point I want to make, though, is that poetry is for everybody. Throughout most of history, it wasn't seen as something elite. It wasn't seen as some kind of academic puzzle to be worked out. It was just another way of telling a story. And if you look back in history, this is borne out. The ancient poets, they would stand in the marketplace and just recite their verses to the public. I was reading about Chile in Latin America in the 1960s, and these illiterate dock workers and miners from the copper mines, they would emerge at the end of the day, tired and sweaty and dirty, and they would crowd around and they would listen to the great poet Pablo Neruda reciting his poems to them. Because they realized poetry isn't for the elites, it was for them. It was for everybody. I lived in Egypt in the 1990s, and there I heard about hundreds and hundreds of illiterate farm workers and laborers. They were called the fellahin in Arabic. They would walk all night to listen to a blind poet recite his verses. Then they would hand him a tiny piece of paper, and he would write one word, or one message, or one little saying on this piece of paper. They would dip it in water, and then they would swallow it, so it became part of them. Well, why? Because the word has a certain magic to it. And this magic isn't just for the elites, it's for everybody, including illiterate farm workers and laborers. So poetry is for everybody. Poetry is also about everybody and about everything. There's nothing you cannot write a poem about. And if I may use the example of Pablo Neruda again, because he happens to be one of my favorite poets. Late in life, Pablo Neruda wrote a series of odes, O-D-E. Do you know what an ode is? Put your hand up if you know what an ode is. An ode is just a poem that celebrates something. And what Pablo Neruda did was he looked at the most commonplace objects around him and he wrote odes to them. He wrote ode to a pair of socks. He wrote ode to an onion. He wrote ode to a desk. He wrote ode to a bar of soap. And see, what he was doing was taking these commonplace objects and finding the poetry in them. He was finding what another Latin American writer, Eduardo Galeano, described as la grandeza escondida en las cosas chiquitas, the greatness hidden in the small things. And of course, poetry can do that. Another thing poetry does is that it stops time. Poetry allows us to linger a while on things that may seem as if they're fleeting. Maybe snowfall, the sound of a bird's wings, maybe a fleeting feeling in your heart. Poetry lets us linger on these things. It also lets us linger on things that seem trivial, like a desk, an onion, a bar of soap. And of course, by writing about them, we celebrate them. We capture them in words, and therefore make them eternal. So I'm going to end there. Those are all the reasons I love poetry. We have some absolutely amazing poets and writers here today, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thanks once again to Miller Library and to Heather. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, JJ. What a beautiful poetic way to talk about poetry too, so thank you. So it is my privilege to introduce our next reader, but just a couple things I wanted to highlight before that is that we did have a couple changes to our schedule. Professor Guerrera was not able to come, so we won't have the Spanish poetry this time. Hopefully we'll have it next time. And Dr. Crocker will be reading after Allison too. So just a couple schedule changes there. So Allison Waterman could not be here in person, but she did create a video with a poem specifically for this event too. So Allison Waterman is the current Poet Laureate for Grant County and Silver City. And she's also a member of the local poetry group Poetry Bread. She has been writing since she's a small kid. If you were to talk to Allison, she would be very exuberant in all the ways that poetry is important to her and how it's helped her through both wonderful times and difficult times. We are fortunate here in Silver City and in Grant County in that we have a Poet Laureate program, and we are the only Poet Laureate program in southern New Mexico. So you should feel really proud of that. And the Southwest Word Fiesta, they put on the Poet Laureate program, and we're privileged to have a couple of other Poet Laureates here also to share their work. One of the laureates who was a previous laureate, Eve Vespasier, she could not be here, but she wanted to share some poems. So I'll put those in the middle. If you want to take a poem in your pocket and read it later, please do. But we're going to hear Allison Waterman read her most recent poem to you via the video. So thank you so much. And even though she's not here, maybe clap loud enough that she could hear it. So I give a big applause for Allison Waterman.
Good morning and welcome to the National Poetry Event for 2023. I'm Allison Waterman, the Poet Laureate of Grant County, and it's a great pleasure and an honor to be here today. I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to make this video so I can participate in this event with all of you. I want to give a very special warm welcome to Heather Frankland's 99 class that I taught a poetry class in last week. You guys are all going to do great. Take deep breaths. I believe in you. Thank you to Western New Mexico University for always participating in the events and for helping to promote the spoken word. As Poet Laureate, I get to write poems tailored to events such as this, and it's been a really cool thing to do, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity. I've been writing poetry as far back as I can remember. I remember being a little kid and just kind of playing with rhyme and having fun with it. And I remember being an angsty teenager and bleeding out my heart for all of my, broken first crushes. And then in college, starting to experiment more with form and pushing the boundaries, exploring other poets and sort of trying to mimic their techniques to see what I could do. Then, with this Poet Laureate gig, I get to do these tailored events, which are really fun. And so it's a little bit of a different process for me, because usually when I would sit down to write, it would be because there's been a line banging around in my head that just won't stop until it gets out. But this has been a little different, It didn't necessarily start with a spark, so I have to kind of wrestle the words out. So having said that, I would like to share a poem. It is called Process. I want to slide into the ether, to pluck from the fog the words I seek. Lift the rug, to sweep up and safely tuck the particles that swirl together to become poems. Peel up the skin of safety and dive into the unknown. Even knowing it's like stepping into the path of a tornado. I want to get eaten up by the maw of creativity and spit back out on the other side, where upside down is right side up, and the spirit of the age whispers the secrets of the muses into my ear. In one ear and out the fingertips that grip the pen, poised on pad, ready to rip open the veil and peek inside. Float on oceans of words, backstroking, my palms cupped with handfuls of phrases and punctuation. Oh, how I love punctuation. Make direct eye contact with the essence of E. Cummings, one of my first introductions to this blissful field of flowers that blooms into words on pages. Plead with those poems that would be, to please pump into me. I'm primed and ready to seek and see the light of humanity and spread it like avocado on toast. Pass out each piece playfully, like an offering at the altar of the sea. You see me, I am a poet, and that grants me access to the world in which I believe. Like bees buzzing around the hive, I want to dive into belief, pop back up with words between my teeth, and spit them with a smile onto patiently waiting paper. Place them gently into stanzas and then rearrange them as I please. But it's all just an offering, a gift to you from me. Not hiding behind the tallest trees, even when the secrets bubble up from deep within me, a poet has to be brave and generous and supremely flexible, able to flow freely through the twisting vines of leaves and believe. I don't keep words under my tongue, even when I know I'll be undone. Those are the very best parts of me. The part that holds my beating heart pulses with creativity, and I simply place the words down by the beat and see where they lead. What do you think? Will you come with me? Thank you. Enjoy the event.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jack Crocker, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. In addition to his various faculty and administrative positions, he's a songwriter and a poet, and he's published 2 volumes of poetry we have here in our local authors collection. He's a past 2-term Poet Laureate of Grant County and served the community in that capacity as well. So to read a few poems, please welcome Dr. Jack Crocker.
Thanks, Mindy. And thanks for the invitation to be here this morning. And Heather, thanks for moving me up. My side job is provost, and there happens to be a important person on campus that I have to meet with today. But not as important as you are. It's just the part of the drudgery. So I'd like to start, I'll just read a few poems. JJ had mentioned that there is no topic that cannot be handled with poetry, and that is so true. So I'll start with one. I see our starting quarterback is going to read today, Devin Larson. I was a jock in college. I went on basketball and baseball scholarships, and so it's good to see another jock who is turned to poetry. And speaking of that, my jump shot was actually poetry in motion. It no longer is. And if you've gone to a football game, you see Devin's passes when he actually gets a spiral. That is poetry in motion as well, a spiral football. It's not so good when he gets hit and gets a concussion, but he can write a poem about a concussion, I guess, Devin. So it's good to see you here. So I'll start with this one. It is about basketball and jump shot. Levitation. The hoop is nailed to the smokehouse wall, too high and too close for layups. In magic levitation, I take jump shot after jump shot, intervals from earth where dreams can breathe. I shoot until dark. On full moon nights, the eternal circle doubles. The arcing globe is perfect, nothing but net. The fields gather around me, centered, selfless, full of emptiness, the pureness of a buck clearing a barbed wire fence. In this area too, as we know, there's a lot of hunting. I grew up in a hunting society. I'm on a Mississippi cotton farm. I no longer am a hunter, but I was part of what in my culture growing up was a kind of ritual, and that was going out hunting and especially killing your first deer. And so this poem is about that. Ritual. It was the coldest dawn I had felt. 12 years old, statued on my assigned stand. So cold I hugged the 20 gauge, my first real weapon toward being a man. Edging to the sun's recognition, I broke the first rule. Be still and let the buck come to you. Even the dogs' belling seemed to hang like icicles in the brightening canopy of trees. Then it happened. The blood boil of a buck turning sideways to take my double-aught slug to the heart. The blur of fire in my lungs, the camp celebration, trophy gutted, my father's pride, paying homage to the herd, rubbing on my face the blood, spirit to spirit, war paint of my first kill. For me, the blood has stayed. I went out as a child, came back as Cain. I didn't have any paper. I had to mark the poems with these cough drops. And Allison's poem was about writing poetry, as students start, I started in elementary school and then in ninth grade. I had one of those typical things that we all experience, a teacher who thought that I had some talent with writing. But as you move through the experiences and the challenges, JJ mentioned that ritual of dipping the poem in water and eating it. Those of you who will continue to write, you'll find that there are times when you really do want to eat that page, but not to make it apart because you're just fed up and sick of it, and you can't get it to go the way you want it to go. But that's when that magic part of creativity takes over and something happens. And we don't really know, I don't think, what it is, but there's something that moves and suddenly you have a form and you have a poem. But then you try to get it published. We write for ourselves. I think poetry is really, all poets are narcissists. And poetry is narcissism altered by imagination. So this is a poem about writing, and it's a lesson that I'll leave you with. Poetry lesson. It's in 6 parts. The first part. The poem is too accessible, the editor said, which I had come to learn meant it was too transparent, or more simply, too easy to understand, assuming there was meaning for which to hunt. For example, he said, the central image is a tree, but, well, it appears to remain just a tree. He was an Eliot Pound man, and at the time, I was into Billy Collins and the magic of the mundane. I had spent most of the poem describing the factual account of raking the leaves and what I found underneath, from a broken, creepy doll my daughter lost to colonies of bugs I could not name except for ants. He, the editor, had said there was no turn at the end to make it more than it is, but he missed my intent, which is easy to do, especially editors who don't read a poem all the way through. The end turned to time, as in the autumn of my life. I imagined when I was gone, the leaves would continue to fall for the next human to rake. 2. As poets are prone to do, so full of self-doubt, distrusting even the original muse, I embarked upon the inevitable second draft. I created a stream of sun to spotlight the undressed limbs, brought in the music of its roots in concert with neighbor trees, and added the orchestral arrangements of the birds that stopped in to sing. And even a side comment, how at night the tree became a nest of stars serenaded by the wind. My intent, I think, was to symbolize some sort of sacred musical brotherhood, a nature-human duet. Section 3. My wife, the real critic, read the new poem and was not impressed. Just like a narcissistic man, she said, you use the tree to talk about yourself. Why not let the tree be a tree? There's no meaning except what it is. Why not let the tree use you? I wasn't sure what she meant, but it seemed profound. After my usual creative pout, I entered the ring for the 3rd round. 4. Less is usually more, and I know the best poems are squeezed and squeezed until compressed into a polished stone that leaks no air, just a solid mass that reflects. I started pruning until only one word was left. Here's the poem now, tree. 5. For the editor, this may not be enough, and probably not for you. A scientist may claim misfired neurons led me astray, or the God-striven failure once again to get inside the truth. But the tree is not its name, nor the poem a tree. 6. This autumn, go out to your favorite tree and rake the leaves, then pause and kneel to receive what it gives. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. And, I apologize. I apologize for having to leave, but from the nobility of poetry to politics, how far we fall. Thank you, students, for participating, and I look forward to reading your efforts. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crocker. I love the one on revision, especially. I feel it. Many revisions, and sometimes you do want to eat that poem, but not in the best way. So it is my pleasure to be the introducer of the next one. Every fall, the Humanities Department has a creative writing contest, and we announce the winners often in the spring. And so we have a formal acknowledgement and celebration of our 4 winners for both the first and second place for prose and the first and second place for poetry. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Oop to come up here, representing Arts and Sciences, to introduce each winner, and you have your certificates as well. And then I think we're gonna go one by one, and we'll have you read your work. And I asked those of you who wanted to stay afterwards, because we're going to get a picture with marketing as well to celebrate your success even further. So thank you. Give a round of applause for Dr. Oop, and we will hear our winners.
Good morning. We're going to start off with poetry. Our first prize for poetry is awarded to Devin Larson in recognition of his poem, "To Find My Great Perhaps." Come on up, Devin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Devin Larson. Like Dr. Crocker said, I'm a fellow jock turned to poetry, I guess. So I'm a senior here at WNMU, getting my bachelor's in kinesiology this semester, and then I'll be pursuing a master's in social work after that. But I mean, poetry to me, in high school I always read poetry, I always loved it, but I never really thought I would be kind of writing poetry. But ever since I got here, been almost 2 years now, I would say that's kind of when I started taking up poetry and kind of writing. I have enjoyed it a lot. Kind of just going out on hikes in the forest and stuff, and there's the lookout point of Van Lilly Memorial, kind of just looking out there. I always take a notebook with me, sometimes a journal, and I write a lot, so kind of feel like that's where it kind of stemmed from, and kind of just, I feel like nature in a way is poetry, kind of just, that's where I feel like all my poems are from, it's just nature, just kind of scenery, so that's kind of why I wrote this poem, and yeah, so this poem is called "To Find My Great Perhaps." To the tallest peaks, to the lowest valleys, what is it that I may find? In search of my great perhaps, my mind begins to wander. Are we to play it safe as the earth turns a new day? Or from the night of our birth, a quest to find what the world has to offer? Play it safe, you may, but for me I wander, for life has no border. Go where you may, find meaning in your journey. Change the stars if you must, for on the night of our death, the stars shine with permanence, and the moon waits for the sun no more. The risk, the adventure, is what I will search for. For when the first rays of the sunrise gives wake to the mountain sounds, my quest of the unknown, to find my great perhaps, will awaken my soul. Thank you.
So Devin's point of inspiration is about a half a mile from my house as the crow flies. I need to take some space over there and set up shop, because that was fabulous. Good job. Our second prize for poetry is awarded to Bella Driscoll in recognition of her poem, is it 1/6/2021 or January 6th, 2021? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bella Driscoll, and I am an art major here, but I'll admit I really like writing too, so we'll see about that. But yeah, for me personally, creative writing is a chance to kind of dig into things that are really hard to kind of take the time to notice or talk about just in an average conversation or something. So sometimes that can be like Devin's poem, something really special, unique, something in the natural world or a moment that you want to capture, but then sometimes that can also be a moment that you don't know how to describe because of strong emotions that are coming up for you, sometimes fear or pain or feelings of isolation. The piece I submitted to the contest was written on January 1st, 2 years ago, as I was watching the broadcast of the Capitol insurrection and kind of trying to figure out how to kind of fathom what was going on. And so I was on the computer at the time and I pulled up a blank page and just kind of started to write. And this is what I found. January 6th, 2021. If we're going down, I guess I didn't expect it to be this way. Funny, maybe I should have, but here's what I'd like to know. What does this mean for our country's sanity, its mental stability, its democracy? When there are people that mad, that scared, and they aren't us out there, how do we live? When there are people who will embrace hypocrisy because they feel democracy has abandoned them, how do we live? When I'm as scared as they are, and maybe for the same reasons, but neither I nor they see it, how do we live? And I don't know, and I'm scared that grown-ups, that the adults who have supposedly got us, don't actually got us and are just as scared as I am. I'm scared that we're all so scared that we won't be able to agree or see each other within the light of civility before it is too late and we are all gone. I'm afraid that wrongs that we or our parents' parents or long ago people we aren't even related to committed will never be righted before we're not even a memory in the eyes of the universe. I'm afraid, and they're afraid too, but the most frightening thing is that we cannot share that fear because we are too afraid. How can anybody expect us to believe in religion, in democracy, in love, civility, damn humanity when we see this? I don't know, and it seems that I'm not the only one who doesn't. I wonder, and I'm afraid to wonder how this will all turn out. Sometimes that seems the only way I can get a real perspective on my life, your life, this life, by saying, what will this be in 10 years, 50, 100,000? So, what will this be in the coming year, and the year after that, and when I'm old? Please let it not be the end of something that was already bittersweet, unless it could be a new beginning, a people at last united. Please say that we deserve a little stability, a little future, when it seems that so many are hell-bent on taking that away. Who am I even talking to? Technology? God? I cannot say I don't know. But at times like these, it seems that all I can do is pray. Pray that there will be peace. Pray that there will be understanding. Pray that there will be a laying down of arms. Pray so hard for a future that works, so that nobody has to stand outside the Capitol because they believe that America can be great like it never was before, so that my brother, who's 9, gets to live through a coming 4 years that are boring and effective and honest instead of apocalypse of lies and horror and anger. I want to believe that America is so much better than this, so please, show me that this is not as much a hopeful lie as it seems today. Thank you.
Wow. What fabulous work. Moving on to prose. First prize for prose is awarded to Elizabeth Villegas in recognition of her short story, Eli and Oli. It's nice to meet you in person.
Good morning, everyone. I get a little bit nervous when I talk in front of people, so bear with me. To me, creative writing is a way to express yourself and write about anything that you like. You know, sometimes it can be thought about life, the past, present, or future. And with my story, I try to question free will with technology, you know, that's the interaction with artificial intelligence. And I just think it's impossible for us to move forward without it. You know, it's just constantly with us, and we're constantly reminded by electronic devices and the AI behind it about what we have to do or what we should do. And it just makes me question how much of my choices are optimal. And I just will read the end of my story, which is also the beginning. And it says like this. Ola's eyes immediately start to feel heavier, and her anger and pain start to dissolve like sugar in water until her mind goes into oblivion. When Ola wakes up, a weird sensation fills her body. As she moves and stretches in bed, she can feel some pain in her right foot. When she finally opens her eyes, the first thing Ola sees is a 3D billboard that says, "When you think of the future, what do you see?" And I just want to credit my professors for English, composition, applied liberal art, and media writing, because I moved to Deming 3 years ago, and I wouldn't be able to write like this if it weren't for them. So, thank you.
Second prize for prose is awarded to another Bella Norero, in recognition of her creative nonfiction essay, Narrative and the Context of Kumi. Come on up, Bella.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bella Norero. I'm a dual enrollment student, which means I'm still in high school, attending Cobre High School. And I'm allowed to take courses here at Western New Mexico University. I'm a senior at Cobre, and I'll be graduating this May, as well as I'll be graduating from Western with an associate's degree in liberal arts. Creative writing allowed for the freedom to write something I am passionate about. For this contest, it allowed me to be able to write and share my family history. I was able to describe in great detail my family's deep roots with the Gila National Forest and the tradition that has carried on for years and generations. So creative writing, to me, means to be able to express yourself and understand and explore your emotions through storytelling. Since being awarded second place in this creative writing contest, I have a greater understanding of my family history, its importance, and my personal emotional connection with the Kuni. As well as I have been able to honor my family and ancestors, some who I have never met, but through their love and tradition that we carry on today, I now feel connected to. I feel honored to be a Norero, still living here in Silver City, and caring for their great traditions and love for the Gila National Forest. I'll now read a section from my piece. For years, my family has spent every Easter and holiday at the Kuni. It has been something I have always admired about my family. It was always so different from what other families did. Going to school the following week and hearing what other kids and their families did, it all sounded so similar. But no one did as my family and I did. No one spent the weekend camping in the same place their family has camped for years, chasing turkey along the river on the four-wheelers with their cousin, helping their dad grill steaks, him sneaking a piece when no one else was watching, or spending the evening around the fire making s'mores with your aunts and uncles while they tell their childhood stories. These things were what made the holidays and the place itself so much more special to me. But the reason why it was special to me wasn't the exact reason why it was special to my family. My grandfather passed away before I was born in 2000. Now, I do not know very much about him, but I do know he was a true Membrano. He was in love with the mountains and was constantly out there hunting, hiking, cattle ranching, and going on a cruise through the beautiful forest. With that being said, it was his only wish to have his ashes spread in the Mimbres River by his family. There was no better spot to do so than the Cuni, and such a secluded place where so much family history and memories have stayed. It is where his children continue to go to surround themselves in the picture-perfect Gila forest. Pine trees stretching as far as you can see, mountains peeking out of every corner, flocks of turkey appearing out of nowhere, and the light, airy sand filling the air with every step and vehicle it touches. This is where the sound of the river is so calmly splashing and sloshing, where my grandfather once spent his days cattle ranching, hunting, and camping, and where he was laid to rest. Thank you.
So apparently we all need to go out into the forest. We get away from AI. We have inspiration to write about nature and ourselves and other things, and all will be well. We have been running this creative writing contest for about 7 or 8 years, and it's taken a while. It takes a while for these to take hold, but these 4 people are amazing. Their work, profound. Their performance, really beautiful. So another round of applause. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing your work with us and for participating in the creative writing contest. I'll hand it back to Heather now. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And then just to note that all of the winners are being published in the Maverick, the Student Literary Press. So when that comes out at the end of this this semester, please, reread and revel in the talent that we have. And I know that many of you winners have family or friends or principals, high school principals, or our schoolmates who are here supporting you. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so we are a community of support. So give everyone a round of applause for the community and for the work that was done. So on to the next group of students. These are my students from English 99, the rhetoric composition class. When they signed up for this class, they probably did not know that they were going to be doing a poetry special project, but they are and have done a poetry special project. And so for this project, they worked both with Allison, where Allison led them through some poems, some special metaphor, and they also had some poems in the class that they did, and they also worked with the library to find poetry books and poems that they liked. And so what they're going to do, each of them will do a brief introduction of who they are. They're going to read a poem that they found that they liked and kind of tell you a little bit about that poet who they found, and they're going to read 1 to 2 poems that they wrote and explain what that meant to them or what reflect on this experience. And since I'm sure they are a little bit nervous, we are a very kind audience, and to show our kindness, let's give them a really big round of applause. So we will start kind of in line. So we'll start with Isaiah, and we will end with Anthony.
Good morning. My name is Isaiah Escobar. So shout out to Professor Frankland for forcing me. And shout out to Mindy. I don't know Mindy. Shout out Mindy, and shout out Allison for teaching me and stuff. So the poem that I found like in the library that Mindy helped me with was it's called Junkyard Dogs, and it's by, I don't know if you guys know this poet, but his name is Damien Flores. He's actually like from Mexico and stuff, and his poem evoked the old town Albuquerque of his youth and growing up in a large, complicated Catholic family. I feel like Yeah, that's me. And this poem that I found is called La Ruca versus the Realtor. And this is it. So, the realtor shows up and asks for my husband the day after my Jefita's funeral. I answer in my church clothes, buttons undone. She wears a business suit, foreclosure notice in her hand. I watched her from the window. When she walked up, the women that usually come to the door don't dress or move like that. Her heels stab the dirt, drive away like the spikes on the tractor, out back, where the dogs are tied and barking. She doesn't know Albuquerque is farmland, depending on where you go. She tells me our home goes up for auction at the end of the month because there's no will, no records, or paperwork. Highest bidder gets the lot. I could buy it back if I want, but property laws don't apply en este barrio. I show her the backyard. I show her what the dogs do when I take their chains off. So, yeah, I just kind of like stood out because it's like kind of funny, you know? And we had to write a poem that I think I picked the one that Professor Frankland gave us. It was the Pantoum poem. Yeah, Pantoum poem. And it's about like baseball. I don't know if you guys know, like a big baseball player. Or not, I don't play baseball anymore. But I love baseball. And this is it. Summer love is fun. Love baseball, love one. Another home run under the sun. Love baseball, love one. So much has been done under the sun, and so much more to come. Okay. Love baseball, love one. Oh, so much has been done, eating and leaving crumbs, and so much more to come. Now waiting for rum. Eating and leaving crumbs, summer love is fun. Now waiting for rum, another home run. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Hi and welcome. My name is Allison, and this is my second semester attending Western New Mexico University. Please bear with me because I'm nervous. So a poem I liked from the book Body and Flames was called Old Song. So here it is. Each of us carries in our chest a song, so old we don't know if we learned it. Some nights between the murmurs of falling kisses, our lips surprise us when we utter this song that is singing and crying at once. Personally, Professor Frankland mentioned that songs or music is like writing poems. So I feel like this poem really relates to me because, for one, I could relieve stress, or it makes me feel in a better mood listening to music, or brings back old memories when I found out when this song was or what the meaning is behind it. This poem was written by Francisco Aragón. He is a Chicano poet and editor. Francisco is one of the very few Chicano poets to get recognized for writing mostly in Spanish within the United States. He also translated poems to Irish and Swedish. His poems consist of short lines and stanzas that explore culture and identity. A poem I wrote on my own is called A Woman. A woman within time, she once was a child. Time began to fly. She inspired to be her mom is her best friend. The friend that loves, cares, and has faith. She is the mom her mother was. My mom is a big inspiration in my life. I follow after what she is and who she is. And one day when I become a mom, I'm inspired to be just like her. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Valerie Delacruz, and I'll be reading a poem by Laverne Risen called Clouds. I used to sit and stare for hours, slow-moving hours when I was 5, at clouds which moved above me, and I dreamed they were alive. I used to wait to watch them change their shapes as they be, the spirits of departed souls, at last, long last, set free. It soared my soul with envy, that cloud rode free and high, until I learned somehow, I learned that clouds are less than I. Less substantial, less observing, less than nothing either way. And knowing clouds for what they are, I went about my play. Laverne Risen is from the Albuquerque area and endured many traumas in the Great Depression. I enjoyed reading this poem because it's about the wonderful wonders of clouds and how we're jealous of them in a way. In the poem, she talks about how she used to stare at the clouds excuse me, until they would change different shapes and glow around in the sky. I enjoyed this reasoning because as a child, I was also fascinated by the way the clouds moved. Now I'll be reading a poem that I wrote in Professor Franklin's class called Summer. Summer is coming, the sun feels hotter, the birds sound louder, the trees look greener. The sun feels hotter, people look happier, and the trees look greener, what a time. People look happier, filled with glee, what a time, monsoon rains are on their way. Filled with glee, summer is coming, monsoon rains are on their way, the birds sound louder. Thank you.
Alrighty. So my name is Michael Diaz, and I will be reading a poem from Pablo Neruda, and some of the stuff that I found out about him was that he is a Chilean poet, and he won the 1971 Nobel Prize in Literature. And the poem is called, it's called The Dictators. An odor stayed on in the cane fields, carrion, blood, and a nausea of harrowing petals. Between coconut palms lay the graves, a stilled strangulation, a festering surfeit of bones, a finical strap conversed with wine glasses, collars, and piping. In the palace, all flashed like a clock dial, precipitated laughter and gloves. A moment spanning the passageways, meeting the newly killed voices and the buried blue mouths out of sight. Lament was perpetual and fell like a plant and its pollen, forcing a lightless increase in the blinded big leaves. A bludgeon by bludgeon on the terrible waters, scale over scale in the bog, the snot filled with silence and slime, and vendetta was born. So what I found interesting about the poem was just the words he was able to use to really describe the type of chaos and horror that would happen in this type of time. And and a poem that I would be reading that I made on my own is a pantoon, and it is about nature. Summer breeze flowing through the forest, a gust ever so slight, the whistling in between the holes of wood, distance traveled many miles, a gust ever so slight, the stream flutters to strain the dirt, distance traveled many miles, watering the source of life, the stream's flutters to stain the dirt, absorb what is everlasting, watering the source of life, constant as the wind and rain, absorb what is everlasting, summer breeze flowing through the forest, constant as the wind and rain, the whistling in between the leaves. And the second poem that I will read is kind of a love and connected to nature also, and it's called Blooming. After many harsh winters, blooming in the ray of sun, bloom in the moonlight, beauty drips out from your petals. Witnessed by so few, never appreciated at first sight, defined by your petals, there's so much more. Bloom and shine, your petals to be appreciated once or more. From the stem to the pollen, beauty inside and out, beauty hidden, plastic beauty that's surrounding, but doesn't contaminate the true beauty. Outside the petals and stems, all around imitations of the natural, limitations of the unnatural. In the center, the real true beauty, still glowing petals, hidden beauty. And that is what I have.
Hi, I'm Megan Chewy. I'm not a poet. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. But the book I got was Ground, Wind, This Body by Tina Carlson. And she's originally from Boulder, Colorado, but she now lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which I thought was pretty cool. And other than poetry, she works as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and she also studied molecular biology. So, the poem I picked from her was Our Lives Aloft. So it starts with, my brothers cook up an idea to live on the trampoline. They pole vault across the yard and jump from room to room in their bouncing home. Beds made of gunny sacks, dry cereal to eat. We jump and twirl and even flip through the day. Our lives aloft, in the borders of night, our eyes are ponds. Everything is moisture and glistens. Some flowers open then, waiting for moths. We sleep outside in the dark, as crickets nod us to sleep. We dream our parents come to watch and sit, hand in hand, celebrate the sheltering trees and their children, lifted up and laughing. I like this poem because it kind of reminds me of me and my brother. Whenever we used to go camp on the trampoline, we just would put sheets all over it and fairy lights and just go sleep out there. And it actually was not as fun as you would think it would be because it was cold. And my dog was always out there farting and it was not great. But anyways, let me read my poem. Give me a second. Okay. So this one's about my mom. And it starts with, the woman who nags me every day, the one who breaks me down, the one to make me cry, the one to make me to frown, the only one that would fight for my life, the only one to pick me up off the ground, the only one to stay. Sorry, I'm getting nervous. The only one to stay no matter what goes down. My mom, my enemy, my best friend, the one who gave me life, the one I want to fight, but the only one I want in every life. And that's it.
Hi everyone, my name is Aubrey Lazoya, and I just want to thank Professor Franklin for giving us this really fun experience. I never thought I would be presenting my own poem in front of everyone, and I'm not really good with words, but you know, here we are. So the poet that I found very interesting, her name is Laverne Ryson, the same as Val. And here is the book that I found. I don't know if you guys can see very well, but it's called Big Nose George and Other Funnies. It's basically just really silly
poems, and I love it so much. I really love the sketch here. It's what stood out to me. Just a little information about Laverne Ryson. She was born on April 29th, 1928 in Petrolia, Texas, and she ended up moving to Roswell, New Mexico, where she graduated from high school. She settled in Albuquerque in 1979 and lived in Rio Rancho at the Fairwinds community for the past 6 years. And I think that's very interesting because I live in Rio Rancho, and I just thought that was a really cool connection. And one poem that really stood out to me is called I Know Them All Too Well. Here we go. When I am gone, the telephone will hang upon the wall, and friends I've known across the years perchance will think to call and ask if I'm alive and well. They'll answer, no, she's gone to hell. My friends will cry, alack, alas, to learn that I ran out of gas. Or if my sins should be forgiven, perchance they'll say she's gone to heaven. Now if such news were handed me, I'm sure I'd leap and laugh for glee. But my friends I've known across the years, I know them all too well. They'll cry 100,000 tears just like I'd gone to hell. It stood out to me because, well, I like the words alack and alas. I think that's pretty funny that she included those in her poem, and overall, all of them are really funny. I just like certain words like that put into poems. Okay, I'm gonna read my poem, and it's called Rainbow. It's just about who I am as an individual. Here we go. The love I feel for others is like no other. My love is a rainbow. My skin is rainbow, my heart and soul as well. I am what many consider a sin. My love shouldn't affect others, yet it does. Why can't I love in peace? Rainbows stretch far and out, they seem like they go on forever. The love I give out is everlasting. My love is free and bold, just like a rainbow in the morning sky. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jylan Dozier. I'm new to this poetry stuff, so let's get this over with. The book I picked was called Sports Poem. It was about all sorts of different sports. There was multiple, like hunting, fishing, surfing, swimming, football, and all sorts of that. And so the author, her name was P.R.R. Knudsen. She was born in Washington, D.C., and she played basketball during her high school season. But she ended up passing away at 75 in New York. So this poem was called Hydrant. He slowly paced his distance off and turned, took poise and darted forward at full speed. Before the bar, the heavy earth has spurned himself an arrow. They who saw his deed, tensed muscles, poised and ran and leaped and burned. But those close-drawn breaths helped him to succeed. Now he is over, they are over too. Foeman and his friends were flying when he flew. I picked this poem because I can relate to it. I did track and football in high school, and I did the high jump, and I know exactly what this person was going through when he cleared the bar. And this poem I wrote is called This Sport. I play a physical and mentally hard sport. Ever since I seen it on TV, I wanted to play on the big screen. It was fun being the best in elementary, but growing up it became more competitive, harder, and mentally draining. Sometimes during practice it was frustrating and tiring. Running in the morning, lifting at 7 a.m., then class after had me thinking, is it worth playing the sport? The two big things that make it worth it are the games and the teammates. During games, having fun winning with everybody on the team is one of the best feelings. The chances you get to make big plays defines who you are on the field. Even though the sport sometimes is a love and hate relationship, this sport is my motivation today.
My name is Anthony Laura. and the book I chose was Wild Nights by Lisa Locascio. But the book had different poets and different poems, and one of the poems I chose was The Letter by Amy Lowell. Your voice is like bells over roofs at dawn, when a bird flies and the sky changes to a fresher color. Speak, speak, beloved, say little things for my ears to catch, and run with them to my heart, for I am one with you. And then one of the poems that I wrote was The Love Box. A love box, a treasure rare, filled with memories, love so fair. A box of moments shared in a bliss, a symphony of a stolen kiss. Each memento, a story told, a treasure chest with more than gold. A love note, a dried rose scent, a lock of hair with love's intent. This box, a keepsake of our past, a time capsule that will forever last. A symbol of our love so true, a treasure trove in me and you. And for Amy Lowell, she was a poet she was kind of a long time ago, 1874 to 1925. She was from Massachusetts, but from a prominent family in New England. She had a long history of cultural and literal engagement. She was known for her distinctive style of writing, which often featured vivid and sensual imagery, rich language, and a bold exploration of emotions and desire. Thank you.
Okay, I think that we have all our 99 students, and hopefully students, it wasn't that bad, right? So you can take a collective breath now too. So let's give them another round of applause for reading their very crafted work and talking about poetry. So we are going to have quite a treat in that we have some community poets here to read as well. And it's my pleasure to introduce the River Poets. Elise Stewart started this group, and we meet twice a month. And they're very active in literary activities here in Silver City. And one thing I'll say with Elise was a poet laureate also for Silver City and Grant County. And Elise is someone who is very, very welcoming. And the River Poets group is big, so we have a sampling of our River Poets. And I also go occasionally too, and Elise is a very welcoming, kind person, as is the group. So any of you who are just now starting to write poetry or have, I'm sure she would be happy to talk to you about coming. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Elise Stewart, who will introduce Leonore, who's one of our River Poets. And Francesca was not able to be here, so both Elise and Leonore are just going to read maybe one additional poem. So put your hands together, please, for Elise Stewart.
And thanks for being so inclusive, and getting everybody together and getting us all to come up here, because we don't do that much. Really, really great to hear your poetry. Thank you. This poem is called "A Place Where Everything is Poetry." Sometimes everything radiates with this glow, golden light, everything electric. Lifted above the ordinary, the everyday, a 2 and 2 equals 4, steady ticking of the clock, the routine, the sameness, the mediocrity, even the small cruelties, and transported into a world of beauty, of truth, of being intensely alive, seen through an alternate portal, trying on the sunglasses of the divine, feeling this tension tie with the essence of life, not what we see, but how we see. Even flower boxes, rotted wood, the spirals etched in deep grooves reveal secrets. The raven exclaims something we almost understand. Orange and black butterfly, lights on the back steps waiting. Leaves quietly change from green to pale yellow. This way of seeing is something we open to, and when it comes, we drink it in all at once and are able to peer fearlessly into the heart of things just for a moment. We make what we see into words to give back, to extend. We pass from hand to hand, a little sphere of sunlight, the golden glow until it flares, breathes, illumines. And then this is another poem. The larger plan, yet unseen. You've always been on the road toward home, even when you turned away from the easy path and chose the hard one, the one with sharp stones that bruised your feet. Were you standing too close to see the larger plan? The tiny twists and turn of time that meant you would meet the person you were supposed to at the exact time you were open and willing, that you would lose the love of someone only to find love again later, that by hurrying toward home you missed the one leaf falling, that by slowing your step through illness recovery you would see around the bend that this was the last stretch, that home was waiting, holding its arms out toward you, inviting you in, you who have never belonged anywhere. I want to thank you, and River Poets is an open group, and we'd love to have anybody who'd like to come, so thanks.
So, hi, I'm Leonora, part of the River Poets. Thank you for having us here, and it's wonderful to hear all the different voices. I'm really enjoying it. So I recently made this Cartonera book. It's a cool way of publishing using recycled cardboard. And it's about the banning of books at public school libraries. And I got fired up. You know, I'm German. I have a history. The Nazis came after, not first the books and then the people. So I'm going to just read excerpts from this because it would be too long. Banned books. You'd think a book's for readers. Some leaders started banning them off the shelf. It's mayhem. They fear that you could delve into some queer stuff, race oppression, an indication they are alarmed. Students get smart, agitate. It's war against culture. To them, a teen's curiosity is worse than boredom. When Black lives make them nervous, they pay lip service to decorum. Out of darkness, a story as stark as the melting pot, as Borderlands, ordered banned. Are the 1930s too fraught to be taught? A girl's ordeal too real? Where I come from, books were burned, hostilities churned up like smoke, a shout against civility. Next up, The Bluest Eye, dismissed, evocatively told, tell of a black girl, her demise, her boldness of longing to be white, provocative and tight. Speaking of Toni Morrison, Beloved is a monumental work. It's consequential, showing slavery and its aftermath, horrific legacies. It needed to be graphic. Should parents have a say what schools may teach? Yes, but there's sex in Shakespeare too, and in the Bible. Where does it stop? Virginia voted out the governor whose veto blocked the sadly named Beloved Bill about parental say, and then they shut the book away. Mind you, it's not an easy read. It's dense and haunted like the past. It's pieced together, torn apart, and it will make you weep. The truth will shock you. The truth is culture's tinderbox. Consider The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. Challenged for a derogatory term, the N-word of a racist joke, a slur. But wait, have book banners gone woke? Alexi says it's mostly true to his life. Junior lived on the res, went to an all-white high school, drew cartoons, his lifeboats. In a surge of teenage angst, he knew the urge to heal, keep that book afloat. Here's a maddening plot. A black girl's friend shot dead by the cops. The hate you give got traction, flung from the shelves for the F word? Absurd. What stung was the call for action. The kite runner takes us to Afghanistan and the Taliban's hate for the flying of kites. And it goes on. Books banned from libraries, gag order classrooms. Where I'm from, they came for the artists and writers, our lasting shame. When uptight folks hold sway, read to reclaim, fight back, let others do the same. See for yourself, to declare a book obscene doesn't make it so. To suppress divisive subjects is derisive. And now even preemptive bans. Let's have a show of hands. Who of you would risk employment, reputation, your family's safety to defend a book? It's the coal mine's canary. Apropos democracy, Salman Rushdie says, what is freedom of expression? Without the freedom to offend, it ceases to exist. Tear up that list. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Let's give them a round of applause too. Again, big thank you for poets to Lisa and Leonora. And if you are interested in reading banned books, I know that we're in a library which has some banned books that you could check out, and Mindy might be able to help you as well, right? So consider that as well. And I was thinking that, Leonora, with your poem, it reminded me of Gwendolyn Brooks with her Real Cool that was banned. And she once said that one of the reasons why she was told it was banned was because one of the lines is jazz June, and people thought it was about sex. And she goes, well, it wasn't, but if that's what you want, that's fine. So it is a lot of what people are projecting onto the books too, without reading them. So thank you both so much. And I do encourage those of you interested in poetry to go hear it, because we have open mics at Tranquil Buzz, I think once a month. And then there are, of course, work with River Poets as well. So our last featured poet is a bit different for this event. And so I want to talk a little bit about it first, and then we'll have a video. So a few years ago, when the pandemic was in the heart of the pandemic, I spoke to Gilda and I were talking about it would be great if we could have a poetry event, something live, which we could not do at that time. And last year, we had thought about having Donna Schneider come, and Donna Schneider was a good friend of Gilda's, who is an active poet in the El Paso and Las Cruces community. And unfortunately, we weren't able to bring Donna last year, and unfortunately, Donna passed away. And so she passed away at the end of last year. So while I didn't know Donna quite as well as Gilda, I had met her, and I figured I would just say a few words. And then as poetry lives on past its very immortal poetry, we're going to hear a poem from Donna, read by Donna in Donna's voice and her own words, a very short poem. So Donna Schneider, she was a human rights activist. She also did a lot of work on the border. She was an active poet. I believe before that she was a lawyer, so she came to poetry a different route. And she did a lot of performance poetry. And she was very big in community and promoting a very active, supportive poetry community. And the community still lives on. She did a lot of work in El Paso. And one of her big projects was with Tumble Words Project, which is a weekly generative writing group where they, I think they still meet on Zoom. It was nice that I was able to lead a couple sessions. Donna connected me to that while she was alive. And also saw a session being led by Gilda too. And so I would say that she was a very passionate and supportive poet. And although she is no longer with us, her poems still are. And we're gonna end the poetry part, and then we'll have the library do a closing with Donna's poem, which is a very beautiful poem. And I believe that it is already geared up for us to listen to. So thank you so much. We'll take some time to hear Donna's poem. If you are interested in reading more of her work, she wrote 4 collections of poetry, and I believe the library may have one here. Thank you.
I am the sound of the shell you hold to your ear, the sound of the ancient sea before this land was desert. I am the sound of the sea behind your eyes, shut against the glare of neon, shining through your window from the cafe across the street. In the night, your breath heavy and your flesh warm, I am the sound of ceramic guitars, once clay, formed with your hands, smoothed and shaped into momentary beauty, behind the dreams in your sleeping eyes. Suspirations and susurrations, secret confessions heard by no one. The simple assent, the unintended exhalation of satisfaction, the chords augmented by calloused hands, the rhythm dictated by you and you alone. When the morning comes and you sleep still, I trace your cheekbones with dusty eyes, your breath the desert wind that never ceases, and I am the sound of the sea.
I just want to thank you all for coming. What I love about libraries is it's not just a place for knowledge. Students come here, they associate it primarily with a quiet place to study. But days like today, when it's a vibrant place where creativity is showcased, I love days like that. And I just want to thank you all for your efforts and what you brought to it. We love making this environment vibrant, from the flags, from the origami art that is student done, the book sculpture behind that is student made, the posters. And so to feature a little bit more of our student art, I'd like to welcome Eric Keeler. He works downstairs in technical services. His background is in art, and he is a graphic designer by his degree. And so you don't see it because it's downstairs in technical services, but it looks like a cartoonist works down there because he draws on every surface. And I love how much color and vibrancy he brings down there to the students. You'll see some of his work. We asked him, can you decorate these pants for Denim Day surrounding expressions on anti-rape culture? And so that's some of his work up there. So yeah, Eric.
Hello everyone, I'm Eric Keeler. I work downstairs at Technical Services. I'm going to be showing you our poetry. But first I want to give thanks to everyone who made this event happen. The Humanities Department, including Professor Frankland, the River Poets, the Miller Library, and MTS. It means a lot that we can have an event like this and showcase all of our creativity. So here's the poetry. We did a play on words of poetry, and we being our work studies downstairs, Susie, Nayeli, DeMarcus, and Danielle, we took poems that we all liked and illustrated and put them in the tree, and it's it's beautiful, I think. And you can come up at the end and look at it up close, because it's a lot to look at. And yeah, that's about it. And up next, I'm going to hand the mic to Anais, who will tell you about the Maverick Journal of the Members Press.
Hello everyone, like Eric said, I'm Anais Sorantes. I'm one of your student editors for the Maverick Journal here at WNMU. In case you didn't know, the Maverick Journal is a branch of the Members Press here at WNMU, our university press. We are the only branch of Members Press that is run by undergraduates. We have our chief editor, Yen Chu, and then I work alongside Daniel Mall and Aaron Campbell as a student editor. We publish every spring. Our first edition was this past spring of 2022, and we're coming out with their second edition very soon. We are a journal that is open to pretty much everything, research, essays, creative writing, art, and poetry. It is open to any university undergraduate in New Mexico. It's not only exclusive to WNMU, and from hearing all of our poems read by our undergraduates that you guys have written, they sound really good, and I think you guys should definitely consider submitting for our next edition. Our submissions are closed for right now. However, we need to get that together for you guys, and it'll be all set and put together by this spring. Once again, congratulations to our my goodness, I'm a little nervous, can you tell? Our creative writing contest winners, again, you will see them published in the journal, so make sure to go give them a read. I definitely will be reading again. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Miller Library for giving me the time to speak. And also, April 16th is National Librarian Day, and in light of our librarians setting up everything for us, having our resources readily available, make sure we thank them. They keep a lot of our resources available for us anytime we need, and it's very important. So thank you to Ms. Barbara Flores and to DeMarcus for setting up all of our chairs and tables today. But again, thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
This is the end, so thank you all. Thank you for coming, and thank you for presenting, and thanks to the library, Southwest Word Fiesta, the Humanities Department, and all. So give each other a round of applause. If you're my students, you need to chat with me. If you're the winners, we'll get your pictures taken. So hang back for a little bit, but thank you for coming. So big round of applause. Thank you.